The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Yo, George, we're finishing.
Spin Tech Pro. Good morning and welcome to Guardian Radio AM. Today is Friday, December 30th, and it's a little after 11 o'clock in the morning. It's actually New Year's Eve. And as usual, I am your host, C.A. Newry, and I am privileged, excited, I'm like overwhelmed to be having a conversation by one Alexis Clark. And someone saying, who is Alexis Clark? She is the creator of Everything Bahamian. Like, what is Everything Bahamian? It's actually a new website, which actually gives detail about Bahamian history. It gives detail about significant Bahamians in general. And it gives about the culture and, those information about the Bahamas. Like, where did you get that from? Like tidbits that nobody knows or people forgot about, the forgotten history about the Bahamas. It's one of those websites that every Bahamians need to visit because of the content that is there, and it's trending. It is the hot site to go and visit to find out about what's happening to the Bahamas and to know about those bygone eras and those, what they call Bahamian celebrities of a bygone era. But without further ado, I have Miss Alexis Clark, who's going to introduce herself because she's a young Bahamian, right? And I'm trying to find out where she get all this information from. How come I don't know about this? And everyone know that C.A. Newry knows history. And Alexis Clark apparently knows more history, significant stories about the Bahamas that I don't know. And so this is why I invited her on, just to have a conversation on who she is, and why she's doing what she's doing. So without further ado, go ahead, Alexis. Let me find out about you. Who are you?
Good morning, C.A. Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor to be here, and I'm glad that you think of me as, that great.
He's a big timer. No, he's a big timer.
I really appreciate
and to
that.
know that I have a young historian who knows so much about the Bahamas and who knows stories that few Bahamians, because I need to know how did this happen?
Well, it all started just growing up. I always had a thirst for Bahamian knowledge. Like, when you have that drive in you, and I can honestly say I thank my parents for fostering that drive that I had and that thirst for knowledge, because even as a kid, when I would see the Bahamian information pamphlets outside of restaurants or hotels, I was drawn to pick those up. Or if I would, go to a bookstore, I'd be drawn to pick up a Bahamian history book. And at least once a month, my mom would take me to the bookstore. She'd say, pick up whatever you want. And I would always be drawn to history books. And so I spent a lot of my youth collecting those books, gaining that knowledge. And July of 2017, I said, to celebrate independence, I'm going to write a fact about the Bahamas every day on Facebook, just every day. And I did that every day, and I got, it got a lot of traction. People were excited about it. And so I thought to myself, you know what, maybe I should start doing this, every so often. And I will admit, in the beginning, I was a bit intimidated by it because I said, I feel like I may run out of content. But as I get deeper into it, I started to say, there's no way I can run out of content because there's so much content out there and so much history out there that Bahamians don't know about, that I don't know about. So as I go on this path of, being a blogger with Everything Bahamian and having that website, I'm learning as it goes on. I'm very thankful to have that opportunity to reach so much Bahamians, and they have that moment like, I've never heard this in my life. I've even had people older than me say, I've never heard of this in my life. And it sent me down like a rabbit hole of learning about different things connected to that. Because it's I wouldn't say that the information that I write about is unorthodox, but it's definitely not what you'd learn in your basic history class in school. And so I get a lot of comments like, wow, I wish we learned about this in school, or I've never heard about this, or, oh, this led me to search this up. And so I feel really privileged to be able to do that for my fellow Bahamians.
I have a text already who's asking what exactly is the website. So just say that again so they can actually search whilst they listening to us.
So it's www.everything, everythingbahamian.com.
Okay, everythingbohemian.com.
Yes.
And just for you, as you listen, I need you to go and check this website out. One of the articles that she's written recently was about Junkanoo, right? And you know when your mouth drop open and say, man, I know Junkanoo. How come I don't know this about Junkanoo? Where did she get these facts about Junkanoo? And this particular article actually went in detail about those years Junkanoo did not happen. And I said, what you mean Junkanoo did not happen? Few people know that there were a number of times when Junkanoo was canceled. Just canceled in the Bahamas, and they never had it. And Alexis went in detail and list the numerous of times Junkanoo was canceled, and particularly canceled off Bay Street, and went into detail about that. And I want to start there. I'm not sure if you can memorize what exactly is within that article, but it's Junkanoo time. We just had a time when Junkanoo was canceled because of COVID. And I thought that was the only time Junkanoo was ever canceled. I said, how can you cancel culture? How do you cancel Junkanoo? And then I come across your article and said, it didn't just happen once. It happened twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. So I want to hear about that.
Okay. So I frequent the Educulture Museum that's run by Arlene Nash Ferguson. This is Arlene Nash Ferguson, and she's a mentor to me. And sometime during, I think I want to say 2021, and I was thinking on Junkanoo and how we haven't had it, for the past 2 years. And I said to her, I was like, was there any other time that we didn't have Junkanoo? And she listed those times to me, and I'm really thankful to her because she has such a wealth of knowledge, and I always, refer back to her anytime I'm writing something about Junkanoo. So she told me about 1942 with the Burma Road riot. And a lot of these times, which is, it's unfortunate that it was kind of like the government was the people of the Bahamas. I don't think that Junkanoo should be taken away if people are, quote unquote, acting disorderly. But these were all occurrences where Bahamians were just standing up for their rights. So I guess I'll do it in chronological order. In 1922, when the Hotel Colonial burned down, they hired a foreign company to build it, and Bahamians were given menial jobs, and foreigners were given higher paying jobs. And so this caused a disturbance, and they had, I guess, a bit of a brawl. And the government decided, we're not having Junkanoo.
You know what? Junkanoo canceled.
Right. So they said, we wasn't having Junkanoo, so Boxing Day 1922, there was no Junkanoo, but they decided to go over the hill in Grantstown and have Junkanoo anyway.
Okay.
So they had an unofficial Junkanoo that was not on Bay, and it was a success, so much so that they wanted to do it again. And the Bay Street merchants, they got upset about this because this is the time when they make money.
Wait. The Bay Street merchants got upset that they wasn't having Junkanoo on
Right.
Bay anymore.
Right. They were having all sorts of fun over there. Okay, you know what? January 2023, y'all could come back over. Y'all can have Junkanoo. And the locals said the Junkanoo, 1923, the Junkanoo said we still gonna have it on Grandstand. So that's how that happened. And I really like that portion of the story because it shows how much power Bahamians have, how much power Black Bahamians had back then. One night us not being down there, y'all ain't making no money. I think that's very powerful. And then they saw that and they did it again.
Okay. Is there any other time that Junkanoo was canceled again from off Bay?
So Burma Road riot in 1942, when they they break Bay Street down, and they decided they wasn't gonna have it. So that would be the longest time in recorded history with Bahamian Junkanoo that we didn't have Junkanoo.
Oh, so it was a stint of time then.
That was 5 years.
Bay Street, 5 years.
1942 to 1948, and the Bahamas Masqueraders Committee, they got together, and one of the members was actually Mrs. Arlene Nash Ferguson's grandfather, if I'm not mistaken, either grandfather or great-grandfather. And they got together and they commissioned to have Junkanoo back on Bay Street, and then 1948 they had Junkanoo back. And then again in 1952 and 1953 they had another ban. And this particular instance I didn't get a lot of information on, but I know that in Mrs. Wood's Rushing Hard and Running Hot, this is a paper that she wrote. She talked about how disorderly conduct, once again, was the reasoning for why Junkanoo was canceled.
Okay. And that was the last time until recent?
Yes, until
Okay.
2020.
You write well. I mean, it's simple writing, easy reading, right? It's not overwhelming. It's one of those reading where you say, I enjoyed that. That's a tidbit what I enjoyed, right? And I want to know, like, your writing history. Like, are you like a writer in general, English major, a journalist about that? You say, I'm going to write about Bahamian stories in general.
Well, I just always wrote for personal, uses. I didn't study English or anything. I actually studied hospitality management and tourism. But I just started writing. I can honestly say my writing has gotten better over the years. So thank you so much for thinking that I write well. But one of my objectives when I write is I want it to be clear, and I want the average person to understand it. I don't want it to be difficult to read, or just like, you look at it and it's like, okay, that's too much for me to handle. I want everyone to be able to read it and digest that
You're drawn
knowledge.
in. You're drawn in when you start reading it. When you say, "Man, what else?" And then I find that I start thumbing through your website. So no, there's got to be more. And no, I want to know more. And I see myself there for like hours looking for different stories. And say, "Oh, I didn't know that." So where this information? So I'm very impressed with that.
Yeah, I think it's all about delivery too. I like to structure my write-ups like a story time. Like I would like to be considered a storyteller, and so I want to make it interesting. It's all about how you deliver it. I think that a lot of times Bahamians, because of how it's set up or how it's brought to us, we decide that we're not interested in this. We don't want to take history seriously. But the way that I want to do it is, it almost kind of leads you to search up more. It leads you to yearn for more information. So I would say that, like I said, it's all about delivery. It's all about how you set it up. You could get someone to be interested in anything once you can make it clear and concise and interesting.
You're definitely a storyteller, and your website explains that and shows that where Bahamians can come and enjoy Bahamian history. Another story that I found where I intrigued and I smiled and laughed, a belly laugh, all my teeth showing, was one where you wrote about the haunted house of Collins Avenue, right? And all my life I hear about this house being haunted, right? And I've been researching. In fact, I had a show about it, and people were giving their versions of it on how they heard about it. And you read an entire story on what happened. I'm like, where did you get that information?
I went to the archives. So between, what my parents told me growing up, and I always have to, commend my parents, because they're part of the reason why I love Bahamian history so much. Growing up, my parents, they always talked about things that happened into experience. And so I feel like that's why I have such a wealth of knowledge of things that I wouldn't have experienced in my lifetime, because they talked to me about it. So it's just like oral storytelling. I encourage Bahamian parents to, talk to their kids about the things that happened in their day and make them aware of it. But I got that information from the archives. I searched up, the date, and I printed out that clip, and anyone who I could get different, comments about it, who lived through that time, I got that from them. And I actually started to do those sort of posts, which is some of my more popular posts. I call them Bahamian Halloween stories. And I do it annually during the month of October. And so I started out with Sir Harry Oakes, and that was pretty popular, and people thought that it was a topic that I shouldn't touch. And I'm like,
Taboo topic. You talking about murder.
yeah, all these people dead, man. I mean,
They done that.
so what they could do.
What they
So- but I started out with that. I did the haunted house on Collins Avenue. I did the Kevin Hanna story that I had.
Yes,
had Facebook
yes,
jumping.
yes,
The
yes,
Bahamians
yes,
seemed to
yes.
be really intrigued with that
And
sort
forget
of stuff.
because we have short memories, and the idea that you bring up a Kevin Hanna and the murders for that, it makes it like, where can I find this information? And you have a risk that you can come here, and I'll tell the story again.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I want to have a one place where someone can go and say, oh, let me see if I can find that information here, because that's kind of what I desired as a kid or a teen. And so when you see that there's a need for something and other people are looking for it, you should be the innovator and, create it.
Good. I have a call. Caller just hang up just when that's going to connect him. Sorry about that, caller. I just about to connect you, and you hung up too quickly. But you mentioned Halloween stories or the month during October,
Yeah.
right? Scary stories. Can you name one or two of them that you've written on?
Well, I've written about Sahari Oaks. I've done the haunted house on Collins Avenue. I've done the Kevin Hanna story. I explored a bit of the story with Harl Taylor
Yes.
and the surrounding deaths with that. And what I want to do also is be respectful because these are serious stories. I want to be respectful and shed light. You know, it's not a
You do a lot of research.
yes. I do love to research.
I mean, the details that you give, it makes it seem that you're older than than you are, right? You were there present because it seems, when it's alive, that it seems like you were a witness. Like you knew Sir Harry Oakes, like you knew a Hal Taylor, and that it draws the reader to say, "Hey, I believe I saw that. I knew what happened." I'm duty bound to be involved. So I'm very moved by that. But I see the caller is here again. Let me see if I can answer this. One minute for me. Answer and then press that button. Hello, caller. Can you hear me? Caller, are you there? I thought I did that properly. Caller, are you there? Caller? And I look like I need Kermit to help me with this phone because that is not working. So forgive me, caller. I was trying to connect you, and it seemed as if I'm not doing a good job, and that Dwight needs to teach me how to answer the phone again. So we'll move on until Kermit comes back, and I get that. You also give some. You wrote an article. Call back. So forgive me for that. You also wrote an article on shields of the Family Island, right? And almost every island or major island in the Bahamas have their own coat of arms, right? But few Bahamians actually know or can identify this coat of arms. I would like to chose to write that story and go into detail and explain the coat of arms and the origins of that.
Well, I went into it because sometimes I learn things as I go and I want to write about it because I said, you know what, if this is interesting to me, I think that other people would find it interesting as well. I was actually going to get a flag and I noticed those shields and my mom bought me all of those. And I thought it was just so interesting to write about because in a way I feel like those shields can empower the islands of the Bahamas. I am.
I have you explain that, right? What do you mean empower the islands of the Bahamas?
When you have something that's your own, especially the Family Islands, I feel like the Family Islands often feel forgotten. Nassau's like big sister and everyone else is afterwards. I feel like a lot of Family Islands, they feel forgotten. When you have a crest or a shield that kind of encompasses what your island is about or what your island is famous for, that gives you a sense of pride. That's my belief, at least.
Yeah, like the Game of Thrones and having the sigil.
Right.
You get emotionally involved and attached to it.
Right. So with Exuma, there's an onion on there. People nowadays you probably associate Exuma with pigs, swine. That's not all Exuma is about. They used to be really big on farming onions. That's huge to know. That's really important history to know. I think obviously they had the pineapple on Eleuthera. So I think it's in a way it lets people know that there's more to this island than the surface of what we know. And I would love to see the shields more, but...
Yeah, and hopefully during our 50th anniversary independence, right, we take advantage of these shields and symbols. And as we have the Bahama Games, which is coming up soon, right, that these family islands who come to compete in New Providence will come bearing their shield and have pride in their shield and their crest.
They were given, they actually have new designs. I've seen those designs for those games, and I thought that it was a really good initiative. For, it'll bring a community together.
Yes. I see another caller here. Let me see if I can get this through. I can try again. Answer that, and you press this button. Hello, caller, can you hear me? Still nothing? Hello, caller, can you hear me? Caller? Nothing? And caller, I may have to wait for the producer to come right back, so forgive me. So as soon as the producer comes back, I will get to know how to answer this phone properly, so forgive me for that, okay? I have a text asking where can they purchase your and explain to them where you can get these stories from.
So I'm actually working on a book right now. It's called Family Island Adventures, and what it will do is it will highlight the Family Islands and I guess the different things you can explore on the islands and the different sites you can see. And why I started that book is because I feel like that's a book that I would have enjoyed as a child. I've been to a lot of the family islands. I think I only have about 4 left on my list to go: San Salvador, Grand Bahama, Ragged, and Rum Key. So I visited all the other islands, and going to the islands, I was just, it's so peaceful, but it's also a lot of sites and history, Bahamian history to unlock that I feel like the general public doesn't know about. It is very expensive to travel to the family islands, but I think with proper planning, it's very feasible. And I think that a lot of people should not only go to the islands where they're from or where their heritage is, but to just go to different islands that, you would never assume are exciting islands to go to. We hype up Exuma and Eleuthera and, Abaco and stuff like that. But explore the islands that not a lot of people are talking about. And I did bird watching, and I got to see wild donkeys, and it was an amazing experience.
A part of your website is a lot of pictures.
Right.
Right? And I'm hearing that you travel throughout the family island. I see you have a number of Acklands pictures.
Right.
I want to know, do you have any connection to Acklands? And when you go to these family islands and these pictures that are featured on your website, right? Do you take them yourself? Is that what happens?
Yeah, so I take all of the pictures myself, kind of like an amateur photographer. But yeah, I pride myself on that on my website. Once you click the images tab, I took all of those photos. And I do have a link to Acklands. My family's from Acklands, Chester's Acklands. So shout out to everyone who's in Acklands right now. My father and my grandmother, they were from Chester's Acklands.
What's his last name? Clark?
My last name is Clark, but my paternal grandmother, she was a Darling.
Okay, she's them Darlings from Acklands.
Yeah, Darlings from Chester's. Yeah, so I really love Acklands, and I claim that heritage because it's important that you know where you're from and who your family is, as Bahamians would say. And so I kind of I started calling myself quote unquote Acklands body because it's so almost like a hilarious ode to my hair. They'll pop up and say, "Yeah, I'm from Acklands. Ain't nobody really rapping that." So I say, you know what? I gonna rap it.
And I have another text asking where can they find you, and they want to know your name. You're Alexis Clark.
I'm Alexis Clark.
I found you via Twitter, right? Yeah. And people know that when I'm Twitter, more like I'm banned from Facebook. But I'm on Twitter, and I come across this Alexis Body, and this Alexis Body is writing like crazy, and she has a huge following, and people are commenting on these stories and say, "Hey, I gotta add this person," right? And so I wanted to know, how do you choose which articles, which subjects, which stories to write about?
Well, where to find me? I'm on Facebook, Alexis Clark. My website, everythingbahamian.com. I also post on my LinkedIn, which is also under Alexis Clark. My Instagram, Everything Bahamian. So I post all of the same content on these different social media apps or websites. What was the last question? Sorry.
And how do you choose your subjects?
How do I choose? Okay. Sometimes it just comes to me, honestly. Sometimes I will have an idea. I'll sit on it for a few months. Or, for example, the Halloween idea. I was just sitting at the table with my family talking about Kevin Hanna. We were talking about the Kevin Hanna story. I actually didn't start with that. That was like my second or third year into the annual stories that I was doing. And I just was like, you know what? I think people would find this interesting. It's like true crime or, crime docuseries.
Mystery.
Right, meets Bahamian history. And I spent a lot of my childhood watching Forensic Files and all the CSIs and all that. So I said if I could put a Bahamian twist on this, I think people would find this really interesting.
And you've chosen some serious topics too. Serious topics in Bahamian history that needed fleshing out, that needed investigation, and needed commentary on. And I give just one. You mentioned about Higgs and his assisted suicide, the arrest of an Obi Wilshcombe, right? And the connections through that. And I said, that's a very serious subject.
That was I thought of that as that story was star-studded. I was like a star-studded cat.
Can you imagine?
Because it was so much unraveling and so much people included in the story, and I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but it was, Opie Wilcombe. It was
Yeah.
brave. It was.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
It was John Hay, former Governor General. It was a primary school teacher and her son. It was a lot of unraveling. I think that was one of my longer Halloween stories because it was just so much to unravel.
And this is why I'm impressed that you chose this particular story to retell, to re-remind Bahamians that this happened, this one point in time, and is worthy to reread, rehash, and to immortalize, right? Because it's significant. And I'm very impressed about the topics that you choose and that you choose to bring to a Bahamian audience and to tell that story again. So I want to commend you on that.
you.
There's a Norman's Key story
Right.
on this website, right? And about a bygone drug era.
Right.
Right. And I want you to tell me about that. Why did you choose that story?
Just like the Halloween stories, is something that people, they talk about here and there, little, tidbits, but a full investigated research story, I think a lot of people are interested in that. I mean, look at even the drug documentaries on Netflix that mention the Bahamas once. People are interested in that sort of information or those stories. Those are interesting stories that, like I said, you won't find it in your average history class. I wanted to take the mantle and write about it because I know there's somebody out there who would appreciate that kind of story.
And I know you were moved to create this website and repeat the website is, give me the name again for the website again.
Everythingbahamian.com.
Everythingbahamian.com. And what inspired you to create it, to start this? Like, was there any other website, or you just saw a niche, say, hey, this is a need, and I must fulfill this need? And do you believe more websites like this history documentation should be created?
I definitely believe more websites like that should be created. What drew me to it was that I've always had a love for Bahamian history and those kind of topics that people don't necessarily touch or talk about unless, with oral Bahamian stories, like, passed down from parents or grandparents. I wanted to document that because it was something that I needed. And while doing that, because it was something I needed, I found that other people wanted that content as well, and they find that fascinating. And so, like I said, July of 2017, I said I would do a Bahamian little history tidbit every day to celebrate independence. And I had this should be a full-on thing that you do. And I thought about it and I said, boy, I feel like I could run out of stories. I know what I could talk about. But then as time goes on, I just had more ideas pop up in my head. You know what, I should write about this, or this is what people want to hear about, or this is what I was interested in as a kid. And if I could, create a full-blown story with researched points and, facts, pictures, news clippings, I think that people would find it useful. I've even had people for essays for school say, can I use this? And I say, yeah, definitely.
Your website is definitely a resource, right, where people come to find information, right? And you should be commended by that. I see also that you highlight, hello. Oh, I thought something was on my line. I see when you highlight people of significance, like historical figures, Bahamian figures also on your website, and even names like an NGM Major, right? I didn't know that NGM Major had a first name, and I'm reading here that Nelson Glanville McFarlane was his name.
Yes.
Right? And you felt the need to basically explore and to give details on significant pub heroes of the Bahamas. How important it is to tell that story?
I think it's so important because growing up, we had I think it was a book produced by Mr. Jones, 100 most notable
Bahamians. Yes,
and I would
that comes with every year, by the way.
Right,
Yeah, okay.
I would go through it, and I would see all these people. You hear the school names, say R.M. Bailey or C.C. Sweden, but you don't know the full name or the story behind these people. With that book, I was able to go through it and learn so much about these people. So I decided to say, you know what? I don't think some people, if you don't go to the school, you probably don't know the name behind those schools, the person, and, what came to be of that person and, different things that they've achieved. And so I thought that was important to highlight that. And I know Long Islanders are proud to be from Long Island and go to NGM major. So I thought that was important to
That's
highlight.
nice. You also highlighted Percy Fuller Francis, the cousin of mine. I enjoyed reading that. That went in detail on how he went into Junkanoo and stuff like that. And like I said, I am impressed on how you choose persons to highlight, right? And this is why I'm thinking that Bohemians need to visit your website to see the culture, to see the history of each island and how you go in detail. And like I said, you are a storyteller. So it's a different type of reading. It's something that you seep in and enjoy. Right now, I'm talking to Alexis Clark. We're going to take a short break. This is Guardian Radio in the AM with C.A. Newry. And we having a conversation about the Bahamas. And we're celebrating Bahamiana. And as we march into the 50th anniversary of the Bahamas in general. And Alexis is doing her part. She's doing her part on celebrating the Bahamas, celebrating we self. And we're having a conversation on that. We will be right back.
J.S. Johnson Insurance Agents are the best. Reliable service, we've been on the scene, protecting since 1919. J.S. Johnson Insurance has stood the test. You'll always cover me. J.S. Johnson Insurance, peace of mind.
Love the show? Once again, call 302-2300 for our rates and packages. That's 302-2300. Become a sponsor on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
Spin Tech Rule.
And welcome back to Guardian Radio in the AM with C.A. Newry, and I'm here talking to Alexis Clark, who is a young historian, not just a young historian. She's a blogger, a Bahamian blogger who highlights the Bahamas, who celebrates the Bahamas, and she goes in detail of those unusual stories, those stories you say, what? I didn't know that happened. I say, and those stories where you say, my gosh, I'm proud to be a Bahamian, and those stories that just move charge and say, hey, I enjoyed that. That is truly a good piece of writing. And I'm going into detail about what else is on the books, what else is she has on the agenda, Alexis Clark. Besides the website, besides blogging there, what else can we anticipate or expect from you?
So in 2023, I will bring out my children's book, Family Island Adventures, and I've started with Long Island. I've already started writing about Ackland's Cricket Island and Long Key. And what I really want to do with these books is I want to expose kids, and I think even adults can enjoy it. I want to expose kids to the Family Islands, and I think if they get an appreciation before they even get there, or if they live there, they can say to their parents, you know what, I want to visit this island, or I want to go to this exact point and see this, and it kind of gives them an appreciation. So if you don't know what's on the island, you're not going to have a desire to go there. And I think it starts from a kid. You know, my mom always took me to the Family Islands with her, and so I grew an appreciation for the Family Islands of the Bahamas, and I love to island hop, like I said previously. And so going to these islands, I felt like I had such a and I really wanted to start with kids. I think that, and it's gonna have, you know, accurate depictions of these islands, talk about the different sites and historical aspects of these islands, and I think it'd be a really fun read for kids, you know, a nice gift for them, or even something to incorporate in schools.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so.
But there are 21 islands of the Bahamas. How can you, I mean, you're trying to have a compact book? How is it that you're going to write it?
I think that for right now, some islands are gonna, come together. Like I said, Auckland's Crooked Island and Long Key. That's gonna be one book.
So it's gonna be a series of books. That's
It's gonna be it's gonna be a series of books.
So it's just not one book. It's
No,
gonna
not
be
just one book. It's gonna be so. For example, for Long Island, that's gonna be all about Long Island, and Long Islanders or different people who want to learn about that can buy that book and enjoy that. So it's gonna be easy to read, digestible, very nice images. I'm working with an illustrator, Edwina Maynard.
illustrator too.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be really nice for kids.
So this book is like soon in coming. It's not something you're thinking about. It's something that you are doing.
Yes, this is something that I'm working on, and I'm finishing up the first book of the series, which is going to be Long Island. And so once that comes out, you can expect the other books to follow.
I'm jealous.
Right after.
How Long Island get the first book and you didn't go to Auckland?
Auckland's is Island, Long Key's the second one. And the only reason why Auckland's is first is because I know I had to conjoin all of those three, and that's a special project for me. So that's going to take a little bit more love and time I got to put into that. But Long Island is going to come out first.
So Long Islanders need to look out for this particular book.
They need to look out
And
for
what
it.
the book is name again, so I can remember. I'm writing it down right now.
It's going to be Family Island Adventures, and this one is going to have, Long Island right under it because this is going to be the Long Island edition. And so each book is going to be called Family Island Adventures, and for example, it's going to be Family Island Adventures, Long Island, Family Island Adventures, Auckland's Crooked Island, Long Key, etc.
And which date do you anticipate that coming out?
I would love for that to come out by Independence, the 50th Independence.
That
celebration.
should be a
Yes,
good
yeah.
Independence gift.
I think so.
Okay.
So-
Besides, I'm excited about your book. Definitely going to buy the book. I don't know if Long Islanders like me, so I'm not sure I'm going to purchase that book. But I'm going to definitely purchase the Auckland's book, right? And of course, I'm sure I'm going to get one or two more. But you have YouTube also. You could be found on YouTube. Explain that project that you do on YouTube, and what do I search for on YouTube for that?
So with YouTube, you can search up everything Bahamian. I will admit it's
Man, everything Bahamian all over the place.
all over, everything. You can search up everything Bahamian, and I've done a tour of Government House.
You did a tour of
I
Government
did a
House.
tour of Government House.
This before the renovation, of course.
Before the renovation. Before the renovation. So I think it's cool that you can see Government House before the renovation. I think it's a lot of Bahamians probably have never been inside Government House. So it's a cool look inside, what it looks like, what, different things in there mean, the flags, why.
And I'm trying to fathom this because I've been to Government House, right? But I just went there to eat food, right? And I went on the grounds, and I was what was that? The ball. Anyway, so it was a walking tour, and you went and explained basically each room.
Well, not the bedrooms because you're not allowed in there, obviously. But the dining room, the foyers, and different aspects about it. I think I also went to, I think it's like a meeting room or something like that. I think it's very interesting, like just to get a peek inside there, because like you said, most people have been on the grounds or had tea there, but they've never been inside, and so I thought it was a cool video to do. I've also done an interview with Eddie Minnis.
The painter?
Right. I went to his studio in Eleuthera and I interviewed him.
You flew to Eleuthera to do the interview?
Well, I try to kill two birds with one stone. So I went to Eleuthera, and as I'm exploring Eleuthera, I tried out to significant Bahamians there. And so when I went to Eleuthera, I reached out to him, and he was actually really nice. I did an interview with him in his studio in the current Eleuthera. And then I also went to Bimini, and I reached out to Ansel Saunders, who held the record for the biggest bonefish ever caught. He caught it in 1971. It was 16 pounds.
Nice.
16? Really big.
And in the background, that is
If not pounds,
Alexa's
ounces. If not pounds,
mom.
ounces.
And
But you got to watch the video to know. So
I'm going to introduce your mom now because she started talking. This is when you start talking, just bring the mic closer to you. This is Miss Deidre Clark.
Desiree Clark.
Desiree Clark. Yeah,
Everybody calls me Des.
Okay, Des, right? And you have influenced Alexis in terms of making her conscious about the Bahamas, allowing her to travel with you to the family islands, especially when you travel there. How important and how significant do you think having Bahamian children travel with it throughout the Bahamas?
So my husband, Kevin Clark, and I, when I worked for my former company, I had the opportunity to travel a lot. And so whenever I traveled to the family islands, I would also always take those to family islands. Often we take our children to America, and they can know Fort Lauderdale and certain parts of Florida like the back of their hand. But why not have them exposed to domestic tourism and know the different family islands and let them have a love and appreciation for the family islands, because we are an archipelago nation with so many islands, and why not be exposed to it and love it? Tourists come here, they take advantage of these islands, and you'd be surprised, CA, how many people who live in New Providence have not visited a lot of the family islands.
I know. I'm still trying to get to Acklands. I know you have ties there too. So you visit Alexa's website, everythingbohemian.com, right? And you see the work that she's produced. You see how it has impacted Bohemians in general, where she's being sought after, where people inboxing her and calling her and say, okay, I enjoyed the story. I need you to write on this. I need you to investigate that. Can you do a story on that, right? You being a parent, right? Seeing what your child is doing and has produced, how does that make you feel?
I am super proud of Alexis. She has always liked reading. And like she said, we had always taken a bookstore and we would tell her, oh, you could pick up 1 or 2 books. And one time we took in a bookstore and she saw a book by my aunt Cheryl Albury.
Oh, your aunt is Cheryl Albury?
Yes. And so she said that, well, I want 3 books. So because I think 2 of those books would have been by Aunt Cherry. Mm-hmm. So I allowed her to buy the book. And so that buying books, that all of that caused her to have this thirst for additional knowledge. And one thing she didn't say about the Government House tour, that was when Dame Marguerite Pinling was the Governor General.
Okay.
And Alexis had Sir Lyndon's book that she read, and she had Dame Marguerite write a note in the book.
Yeah, she said
Write a note in
Yeah, she
Sir
said-
Lyndon's book. So, she has a lot of Bahamian books. I mean, in my bedroom, I have a library in my bedroom. So I guess my love of reading went on to the children.
Mm-hmm. So back to you, Alexis. And your mom mentioned that you have a list of Bahamian book anthologies in general, right? And I know you like to read. I know you like to research. I know you have a lot of history books in particular, right? History. Why not romance novels? See, look at why I stereotype in women. Forgive me for that. But why not romance novels? Sci-fi things. Why
I don't
history?
know. Honestly, from I was a kid, you could ask me, why not these books? And I would have told you, they ain't real. I had somebody ask me that before, because my sister, she liked recipe books, Harry Potter and stuff like that. I could never get into Harry Potter and stuff like that, because I know it ain't real. I know that sounds a little silly. But I just always I would always pick out the historical books or the biographies. I even like movies that are based on a true story, because it's I go down the rabbit hole afterwards, who were the real people who were involved in this? What ended up happening? I just really like real stories. And so I think that's how I got tied into history. Just loving all things Bahamian. It just made sense.
And I want to talk about the Independence Day celebration. What are you anticipating? What would you recommend to the Bahamian government in terms of what should we be doing? What do you want to see for this Independence Day time? That's a big question, eh?
That's a big question.
Didn't anticipate that, I know.
I didn't.
I know, but you still got to answer that.
Just say I want to see something different. I think we've done a lot of the same things over again. This isn't to say anything bad about the Independence Committee. They do well with the resources that they're given and the time. But I want to see something different and something bigger. 50 years is huge, and I think that I know they've already started planning, and I really like the signs that they have on the roundabouts. I think it's gearing people up, Road to 50, and the different pictures. I think it's really nice, but we won't get into that specifically what I want to see. Maybe that's a different segment, CA. What you think?
Yeah, man.
You got to bring me back.
I can plan to bring you
and
back.
We
need
can
to
talk about that then. Mm-hmm. But I'll leave it at that. Something different.
Okay. I see I have another caller here. Let me see if I can get this caller through. And look how easy the producer's able to connect, and I be fighting. Go ahead, caller.
Hello.
Go ahead, Sparky. How you doing?
Hey, you got me now. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
I was hearing you you couldn't damn me.
Oh, that I guess the line
Yeah.
was bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I sent you a number. I'd like you to give me that number to the lady with the stories.
Go ahead again.
If I sent you a number,
Oh, okay.
if that's my cell number,
Yes.
If you could give that to her, please, I'd like her to WhatsApp me.
He
I got
wants you
some
to interview
information
him.
for her.
Okay. Hi, Sparky. Nice,
Hi,
it's nice
darling,
to meet
'cause
you.
right there in the valley, there's some stories that a lot of people have stories, but getting somebody to write the stories is another challenge.
Right.
Some people are good at writing. Some people are good at passing it down by word of mouth. Like for example, in Junkanoo itself, one time ago we had what they called the adult groups, and then they called the juvenile groups. That has been changed now to A groups and B groups. But there's one time ago when there was just the adult groups. Do you know that the Valley Boys was the first one came up in a junior group, calling itself the Tropigas Macedonians, where the Valley Boys was getting so big that Gus Cooper and Doyle Burroughs decided that they will take the young teenagers, the little high school guys, and split them into a junior group where Doyle Burroughs was working at Tropigas, propane tank place on Centerville opposite General Hardware. And he was working there. He got a sponsorship for the junior group. We went out as the Valley Boys junior group for the first time, and we almost beat the Valley. We had so much energy and fun. We went down as the Macedonians. And that's where you started in Junkanoo, the junior groups. The haunted house you're talking about is still down there by Columbus Primary. I think it's going up on, it looks like they're moving it up to the second story now.
Right.
I remember that night when that was going on down there. They brought all the fire agents and down there. But everybody moved towards that area that night. That whole area was crowded. And then you got the Collins Wall situation. There's also, it's not that one wall on the western side through Ross Corner and Gibbs Corner. There's also an eastern wall on the eastern side of ZNF Doctors Hospital that comes all the way down to Columbus Primary. There's also a southern wall. All of those walls, all those history things are still in place, But a lot of this stuff has never been written and it's never been told. But a lot of people in that, we call that the Centerville area, there is a lot of stories that's never been written or told. But you know what, guys, since picks them up all of a sudden. I think you should follow up on something like that. I got some stuff to tell you. You'll be amazed.
Okay.
You got
Thank
my
you so
number?
much, Sparky.
Text
Yeah,
me.
I'll WhatsApp you.
I can send you something right now, and you'll hear a story right there. But it's already in video.
Oh, wow.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sparky.
May I?
Go ahead.
So, CA, Alexis has a direct connection in the Centerville area because my father-in-law, George Clark, lived in the valley. He lived in the valley, and so the Clarks, through that corner, everybody knows them in the valley. And speaking about Junkanoo, I have to give a shout-out to my colleague and most valuable staff member who is such an intelligent, creative employee with such good work ethic, Miss Christina Fernanda, also known as Muffin, who is the first female chairman of One Family, who just won the 2022 Boxing Day Parade. She and I work in the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, and she's an awesomer Junkanoo chairperson lady.
Good. Congratulations again, Muffin. I have a caller there. We have pushed the caller through, and then we wrap our things up. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Well, good morning to you, CA, and to your guests. I'm very impressed.
Good morning.
We need to do a real history on the Bahamas, good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think once we do that, your guest would probably be the best person in the world to visit every one of our schools and explain what she found. We had some of the first boat builders in Abaco
Yes.
after the Indian. That would have been my family hundreds of years ago. And, it's sad that we are forgetting our history and I'd like to say, cancel culture on our culture. It's an attack on us. And it's only going to be people like the young lady that's going to document what we were so we will know where we want to go. So I commend her for what she's doing. And good show. Y'all have a good New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you
Have
very
a
much,
good
Graham.
New Year.
And before we go, Alexis Clark is who I'm speaking with and have an interview with. Again, tell me where I can find your website, or where I can find you on Instagram, where I can find you on all the social media platforms. So I let you do that.
You can find me at Everything Bahamian. I also have my website, www.everythingbahamian.com. I sometimes post on my LinkedIn, which is under Alexis Clark as well. And I'm also on Twitter, Ackland's Body. So you can also watch my YouTube videos. I have an interview with Ansel Saunders, Eddie Minnis, and a tour of Government House, and that's also Everything Bahamian.
Yes, so this has been Guardian Radio in AM with CA Newry. We are having a conversation with Alexis Clark. And also her mother is here. And watch me pronounce it, not Deidre. Is it Deidre Clark? I said
That's
Desiree.
right.
I'm going to rename you Deidre any minute now. Desiree Clark. And we were talking about the website, Everything Bahamian, and how it featured prominent Bahamians with their biographies. And of course, they had some stunning photographs about old Bahamas and the events and things that happened on the various family islands. So I was very much impressed with that. So I just wanted to mention that. Again, Guardian Radio and AM, and this is our last show for the new year. So I wishing everybody happy pre-New Year, right? Something like that. And have a wonderful day. And go to church. Go to church for New Year's Day Eve instead of going to that party. Have a wonderful day.